You know that one song you can't get enough of? Chances are it was made with a sample from Splice. Explore top packs made by your favorite producers, sketch out song ideas in seconds with Create Mode, and dive into a sample catalog that's so deep, it's dangerous. Find out why Splice is the industry's not-so-secret secret. Visit splice.com and try for free today. Welcome to the Fader interview. I'm Alex Robert Ross, editorial director of The Fader. If anyone could make the case for releasing club music at a time in history when all the clubs are closed, it's Shygirl. Back in November, the London artist dropped her biggest work to date, ALIAS, an EP that funneled her signature vulgarities through barreling beats and Bratz doll-like avatars. Now she's emerging from lockdown as a cult icon, her lascivious swagger dripping out of the rave and into the mainstream. Between the blood-curdling scream from Uckers going viral on TikTok, troves of memes parodying the stretched skin of the ALIAS cover art, a Burberry campaign, and a forthcoming Lady Gaga remix, it feels like Shygirl's moment. On the heels of her new single with Slow Tie, BDE, the Fader's Salvatore Maicki caught up with Shy to discuss the aftermath of ALIAS, the challenges of filming her new short film Blue, and her many current textural fascinations.
How are things out in London?
It's good. It's good. It's been weird kind of getting into a new normal and being outside a bit. I've been lucky enough to be able to travel for work and stuff, but it's different when you're out and you're working or you're shooting something. Like the idea of being social again is such a weird concept. It's kind of been hard to readjust because I found that I really do like my own company a lot.
Yeah, have you felt like a bit of agoraphobia set in? Because I have.
Yeah, totally. And also, like I did a lot from being inside, so I put out a lot in that time and haven't really kind of like felt the public reception of it until recently. And it's been so positive, and like I think a lot more people are aware of what I do now than before. And I think that was quite a weird adjustment. Like even the other day, I was out with my dad. I saw him for we had Father's Day. I went out with my dad, and someone recognized me, and I was like in really like suburban London, like way back in like South London, and I don't know. I just didn't really expect anyone to know who I was. Like it's such a weird concept, and especially like to come up to me while I was like having dinner with my dad. I'm kind of not used to that, but it's been happening a lot more recently, I guess, because we've been outside.
For sure. I mean, we kind of entered this, pandemic state with Shy Girl kind of being regarded as more of a relatively DIY endeavor. And now you're coming out of it as one of the faces of Burberry. I mean, that's a lot to process.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am someone who constantly, I don't know, I think I've taken a bit of a jump, I guess, of what people would have expected for an artist like me. But I think it's generally like reflective of, what people are listening to and what they want and what they're doing as well. I think that was something like me thinking I'm not going to be recognized in South London is me thinking, the type of people who listen to my music. And I'm to be honest, I genuinely always kind of think it's like the queer community. And I grew up in South London and I never really felt the queer community there. So I didn't think I'd be recognized there. But actually, the queer community is way more out and proud than it was when I was growing up. And so there are people that I listen to my music then. And actually, it's a bit more diverse than just the queer community as well. Like, I think there's something in the freedom of what I do that speaks to a lot of people at the moment.
Totally. I think it kind of draws the freak, if you will, out of people. And maybe that's always there. And, you just kind of need it reminded.
I think as well there's something what I guess what I've always, wanted to do is prove that yeah, we might have our like niches where we feel the most comfortable, but actually we have a lot of common ground. There's loads of different like people are way more intersectional, than previously. You don't have to be so in your tribes. And I think that's kind of what I've always kind of pushed for in this music where and how I present myself is that, don't just expect something small from me, or whatever you expect, I'm going to do something slightly different the next time, or you're going to see me dress slightly differently. There's no comfortable space. Like every space I'm going to like insert myself into, if that makes sense.
It's wild because it feels like Alias dropped ages ago, but maybe it was just because it felt like an entirely kind of like a different world. Back in November, it was a much darker time. You know, like when the pandemic kind of started settling in, did the thought of, you know, maybe I should wait this out and put this music out when we can be together again, did that ever cross your mind? Or was it like, you know?
No, I mean, it probably crossed my like manager's mind, but I was like, I need to get this out. Also, I was just working, at my own pace. The whole thing really felt like it was at my own pace. I didn't really feel like I had any crazy deadlines, but once it was done, I was like, it should come out. Like, and I have the ideas and I know what I want to do. And to be honest, the way the music industry was structured slightly before that, I felt was really rigid, and I was always kind of looking to do things in my own way. And then when COVID happened, it really facilitated that. Like I'm someone who really enjoys like all elements of putting out music, not just like making the music, but working on the creative for the videos, like fleshing out the concept. Because for me that I didn't really think of that stuff whilst I was making the music. I was really just seeing what came through naturally, and it was only afterwards that I looked at everything and was like, okay, what is this actually saying about me? And what do I want it to say? And how do I want to say that to people? And then I just really had so much more time than I would have usually had to flesh that out, because usually I'd have shows and stuff in between. And that's a different headspace to performing and, working on a treatment for a video are two different spaces, and I really like to dive into both of them. So it's like that's hard to do whilst it's happening at the same time, and especially whilst I'm still in the introductory stages of what I'm doing and how I'm speaking to my audience. I feel a bit better prepared to do shows and work on creative now, but because I think I've kind of set a standard of how I like to work and have a really good team.
So now I am wondering, did the aliases arise out of the songs, or did the songs come out of the idea of aliases?
I guess this is a hard one to explain, because it's like I feel like I was unearthing a language, in the creative to better describe what has always been going on with me, how I maneuver through the world. So this music that I was making and the energy that I was bringing into each track or in the room when I was making it, it's not just, the lyrics of the song, but also how I feel when I'm performing them, or when I was dipping into memories to write them. Who was I being when I delivered it like this? And like I was asking myself those questions, and how often does that energy come forward, and like, do I feel like that's a solid part of me? And actually, I just haven't had the time to really review that in myself, be reflective on that. Especially with like Bonk, that the idea of her as a character had started coming through in the earlier EP Cool Practice, when I did Gush, and I painted myself with like clown makeup, and I also did that again in another shoot, and like I was like, where does that kind of energy come from, where I just want to like, wear a mask sometimes? Because it was a similar mood in each of those experiences, where I wasn't in the mood, or, I turned up to this photo shoot and I was like, I'm not in the mood. I'm gonna get in the mood by painting my face so ridiculously, so that you have to kind of feel the boots of that character. And I think there's a lot of that in the aliases. And sometimes I kind of really felt like I was dissecting myself, almost to present myself better to an audience. The idea of an alias, how truly alias is that concept when you can only ever really be yourself. It's you being those characters. So that character must say something about you.
I'm a fake, yeah, I know you like seeing me say it. Can we throw it down again? Can we throw it down again? I'm a freak, yeah, I know you like seeing me say it. On the bed, on the floor. I'm a fake, yeah, I know you like seeing me say it. Can we throw it down again? Can we throw it down again? I'm a freak, yeah, I know you like seeing me say it. On the bed, on the floor.
With the aliases, I was wondering, like, did you kind of grow up with Bratz dolls as a part of your childhood?
Do you know, I had one Bratz doll. I think they were a bit pricey, so I didn't get that many. But I had like Barbies, and also had like Polly Pocket, and like all these like images of women, and this ideal woman, this doll-like thing, and these exaggerated features that they felt like alien to me. Like, when you're a kid, you don't look like the toys that you're playing with. And for me, especially because I just grew around so much like white imagery, like white dolls. The black dolls had very Eurasian features. It's just interesting to me, like the way I assimilated with it is I didn't really reject it. I didn't dislike it. I loved the fact that it was so different from me, I guess. It made the fantasy more applicable. It made like it's the only life I knew in terms of cartoons and toys and stuff like that. And like this idea that rather than wishing I looked like that, but it was nice to be able to escape, I guess, reality. I don't want dolls that look exactly like me. I didn't want to make alias characters that looked exactly like me. Like, I'm happy with what I look like, and I enjoy the reality of myself. But like fantasy is a nice thing to dip into every so often.
I also read that you collected stones and gems since you were kind of young. Is that a collection that you're still accumulating?
I haven't for a long while. I think it was something about like, everyone getting really into quartz and stuff, and like the energy of stones that like kind of put me off for a minute. But when I was young, and I'm talking like really young, like 12, wherever I went, like I always found a store somewhere that sold these like natural gems, and I like find the smoothest one because I used to find it really soothing to just like I'd have it in class, or I'd pick like two of my favorites that day, and I'd have one and I'd just like rub them all day long, and it would be like really soothing to me because I have a real thing about textures, and I'm quite a tactile person. I think that shows in like the work as well. Like, I'm always choosing colors or textures in the videos that feel really visceral, because I think for me that's like such a strong sensation. Even in the like, when I look at people who've had like loads of like plastic surgery and stuff, there's something like really interesting about this desire for like smooth, rounded, plump edges and like all this stuff. I don't know. I'm just fascinated by it. Like, I find a lot of things fascinating. And I think that's like the big like what joy of life, to be fascinated by stuff. And I want to be able to like share that with people. And when I make stuff, I'm like, okay, well, I'm really fascinated by this. I want to be able to share exactly how I see it, so that maybe someone can feel how I feel when they see it. So there's an ASMR quality about using text, like trying to emulate textures in visuals, and especially with like Freak. I think the first video of the EP, where I just wanted this like gooey, slimy space. Like, I don't know, it's really fun. Like, it feels like being a kid again.
Is there anything you're fixated on right now or kind of fascinated with in this present moment?
Water, like in liquid. I've been really busy lately, and there's a big desire for like I wanna have a break. But for me, like, a break has to involve water of some kind, whether I'm in like a pool or by the sea. But I just don't feel calm until I'm around a huge body of water, and I'm fascinated by like the wildness of it. When you look at the ocean and it decides to stop at the coast, it's like it could just not. It could just like come forward. There's so much power in water. It's so beautiful, but has like a mind of its own. It can turn on you. Like, you can drown in a shallow pool, but like it's really beautiful. That like danger, I guess, of something beautiful is really attractive.
Now, I haven't seen your live performance Blue yet, but does that aquatic element kind of come through in any way?
There's a scene where I wanted loads of foam, and I'm like inside the car, and we've got like loads of foam running around the outside. Like, water and wetness is such an easy association with women. Like, it's there to be played with. So I wanted to play with that, because I was looking at the designer actually the other day. I read something she said in an interview, Depetza. She explores wetness in her clothing, and she said something about how there's such a taboo about that with women, and enjoying that, and also that sexualized concept being forced upon you as well. And I was like, yeah, exactly. You know, when someone says something better than you could have ever said it, and I was like, that's exactly why I'm so drawn to like playing with it and, you know, asserting it on my own terms and being like, it's about acknowledging, you know, comfortability in your own sensuality almost, and something so natural as water.
Right. I mean, the word moist. Let's talk about that. It's taboo, but would you prefer like a drought? Would you prefer dry and cracked?
Literally, I love that word. I love moist. It was an insult when I was at school. It's like if a guy, it's always used against guys actually, which is so funny. But if someone would be like, "Oh, he's moist," and I just even the way they say it, I was like, "But isn't that fun? Isn't that fun?" I was like, "Yeah, I want to be moist."
Oh man, I haven't heard it hurled like that as an insult. Like I just like here it's like people say it and they're like, "Oh, like this cake is moist." And then like everyone at the table is like, "Oh, like, oh, I don't like that." And it's like, "Why? You don't want I want moist."
I'm that guy who says it to make everyone squeamish. I'm like, yeah, but check, like, you really like it. Like, they get ugh because they're embarrassed because they like it.
She came to fuck. Tell me now if you're looking to get down in the back, in the front, on the highway in your truck. I don't give a fuck. Turn me up, let me hear it louder. I can never get enough. Is it rough when you see me in the club with the bottles turning up? I got pretty mean bitches if you wanna try your luck. And it's stunting with the A-team, know you wanna touch. Bite it off, real Rottweiler bitch in the streets when I want.
Tell me more about this Blue performance. I'm curious, you know, how did it kind of come to fruition?
As an artist, everyone's looking at each other and what everyone's doing, and everyone's doing these live performance things. And I'm like, I avoided doing, you know, any of the virtual stuff for ages because it's not what I enjoy about live. If I'm going to do something virtually, I'm going to do something different virtually, you know? It doesn't have to be like one size fits all, but the things I loved about live was being on the stage and falling into a character because that's what the stage is to me. It's a theatre, it's performance. And how can I bring that theatricalness like back into this, you know, into this new staging where things are pre-recorded because I prefer to pre-record at this stage. I really wanted something where I had a little bit more control in presenting it because, you know, again, this is an opportunity. Like, when else would I get to really assert how I would like to be consumed entirely live? You know, there's always other constraints for some of these like festival shows. It's like money or traveling with stuff. You know, it's like logistically a nightmare sometimes. So I have this opportunity here to present myself the way I want to be presented and to kind of give someone a like a step to understanding me and translating it later on if they wanted to, like from this place, you know, where I've said this is how I like it. Also, like I hadn't really had any time to live a little bit longer in the ALIAS songs. You know, we hadn't had the opportunity to do shows, and that's really how you live in the moment of a release, right? So I kind of had this opportunity to do this thing, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to do all the songs because actually some of the songs I don't think would live to their fullest potential in this setting, and I want them to be like, you know, things like Tasty isn't in this, but I play it for a second, but it's not performed in this because Tasty for me was that like big summer song, you know, it involved people and dancing and to be outside because I wrote that song outside in the park. And I was like, I don't want to bring this song back into the studio. Actually, it's not what it is for me. And for Blue, I wanted to, it was like a self-reference moment because I'm obviously obsessed with cars in some way, and I never realized I was until I just keep going back to cars as like a thing. But it was like I had the most fun making the BB music video just before I guess like my like people became a bit more aware of me, and I wanted to reference that a little bit and kind of live in the world I'd started to create with that video, which was kind of BB was based off this girlfriend of like your dealer who like sits in the car or something while you're like awkwardly picking up, and like there's the girlfriend's always kind of like a little bit fab and she's like quiet. You're like, does she hate me? Like, what's she thinking? You know, like that's who I was in the BB music video, and I kind of wanted to expand upon that a little bit more. You know, like using myself as a reference and seeing like what world I could create with the new songs with that basis. I was like, okay, how many things can we do with a car? Like, let's just run away with it with this. So like, we had a car. I said, let's cut a car in half. Like, let's do that. So we did that. And I was like, I want to be filmed from above. Like, I want to see the car from a different angle. I want the car to be up higher than the ground. I was like, I want all these things so I can, different ways of presenting the same scene almost, because it's like when you're on stage, you have one scene and not, you can't change so many components all the time, like unless you're like a huge artist, like, you know, Ariana, who has like loads of set going on or whatever. But like, I'm still in the early stages. I think we definitely got the most out of what you can do with a car whilst like presenting the, or like kind of all collecting together the aliases that I'd put out there. Like, I'm wearing like one look throughout the whole thing, but pieces of the look change. You know, felt like that was important about, you know, creating this continuity and kind of trying to bring the sides of me together, but showing you that there's different ways to reflect these different like personality traits almost, and like the energy that you put across on screen, and my relationship with the camera and how voyeuristic that can be. And if you're given this opportunity to perform in this way, like the audience should be able to see, you know, more angles of you, or, you know, closer than they would ever get if you were on the stage. And that was really important to me when I was making this like movie almost, you know, like with Freak, like I'm inside the car, it's voyeuristic, it's like different angles shot inside the car, like static cameras, and I'm obviously like in my element almost, because because Freak is such a moany song, you know. I'm like moaning and like performing, and there's water foam running down the side of the car. It's on the nose like of what it is, because that's what the song is, you know. The song is like in your face about what it is the whole way through. So why would the performance be any more subtle than that?
Yeah, so did you feel like recording this, you got to maybe distill as pure of an expression as you would have liked to? Because I was reading your tweets, and I do agree with you about heavy-handed male camera crews, and maybe how the expression isn't as emphatic as you perhaps would want it to be when you're kind of in those situations. Do you feel like you got to maybe express yourself in your fullest potential with this?
I mean, I wouldn't say to my fullest potential. I'd say we're very nearly there. This shoot in particular, I co-produced it with my creative director as well. I mean, co-directed it. But usually we even co-direct with someone else, you know, because I don't really like dealing with a lot of film crews. They're very, you know, so much masculine energy. Yeah, and they don't want to hear it from the artist. There's not the respect there. And my background before making music was always in like film and photography anyway, so I definitely have, you know, that, I don't know, there's sensitivity to being respected in that, and people understanding that I do know what I'm talking about. So I may be a little sensitive at times, but honestly, the misogynoir that happens on sets is wild, you know, and I'm not the only one that talks about it. Like, people know, like people who work in the industry know that it happens. And unfortunately, like I do try and work with a lot of female crews, but like sometimes it's just not available, you know. Someone isn't available, and or doesn't shoot in the style that you would prefer. So you end up working with someone, and a lot of it, because of this industry, people work on jobs, they might not like the person they work with, they just don't work with them again. But that person is still out there to work with other people. And like a lot of them have really toxic traits. On this set, for instance, it was a 2-day shoot, and on one of the days, one of the scenes, we used like a crane to film the final scene, and the crane operator was racist. So it was like 8 a.m. By 8:30, like I had to have a meeting with everyone to like discuss like what we're gonna do about it, because he'd already been racist. I think he turned up speaking in a Jamaican accent. He's like an older white guy. So already we're like, what are you doing? And the production assistants that I had on set were like three black girls, and he had a conversation with them and ended up saying the N word, you know, talking about the difference between racism in America and England which I don't know where he had his credentials on that discussion, but he said it then. And he said that this job requires skill, and if they don't have it, they should think about retraining as a bus driver or a nurse. He said some wild stuff. And so immediately I'm like, we can't have this guy on set, you know. Basically, he was so confident in having that attitude on set because the industry supports it at the end of the day. Like, there's nothing in place to protect people. And when we reported him to Beck2 and the APA, who are the unions that he was associated with. Beck2 said they would investigate. The APA, their response was so ridiculous. They ultimately wanted to shame myself and the producer in coming forward because they were like, we're not the police, we don't fine people. Like, they were trying to highlight the ridiculousness of our email and CC'd in every production company that they work with. Luckily for me, like, as someone who is intersectional here, as an artist, as a director, you know, I feel that I am able to speak up on it, but there are other people, like people who only their whole job is in the filming industry, you know, who cannot speak on it because their livelihood is affected directly. They won't get booked on things. And it's sad because when we spoke up about this guy, loads of people came forward to say that they'd had this same experience with him. And it's just a shame that it came to our door to talk about it. But I am glad that I get the chance to talk about it because it's a real experience. But before I think about making anything, is like, is it worth the trauma? Because there is going to be trauma on set. It's so funny because there's been so many. Those are the negatives, but in total, like, I really did have some really great experiences on that, and there were so many moments when I was on set when I was so in awe of like seeing it come together, and really proud that some small idea I'd had was being made big in this process. That was like a really big moment for me. It was like the biggest project I've tried to work on, and I hope to work on even bigger in the future. But the reality also of like facing up to this kind of attitude that I guess I had been avoiding previously, and just kind of accepting that it existed and trying to find ways to live around it. And now I think I really want to be defensive of the environment I want to work in creatively. Like, I want to not like wake up and believe that I can go into work and it would not be toxic, you know, on some degree. Like, I want to exist happily in this industry, and I do think it's possible. Like, I have to think that's possible to continue.
Yeah, you have to get out of bed in the morning, to feel empowered. And it sounds like in a way that this performance accomplished that for you and kind of got you to that level. So I'm really excited to see it.
I hope everyone likes it. It's so hard when you're working on something, and like, I'm always hypercritical. I'm really trying to learn to like chill out, and it is the releasing it to everyone that does make me chill out. Same with the music. Like, once I put it out, it feels like it's, you know, taken by everyone and adopted, and I can be happy for the life it's going to live. But before that moment, I'm just anxious.
Yeah, but you know the internet's going to eat it up just like they've eaten up ALIAS. You know, could you have anticipated how your fans and how, you know, Twitter has kind of eaten up this project? I mean, the memes have been incredible.
I was so surprised. Like, I really love Alias. I've never felt prouder of something because, you know, music has been such a discovery process for me. And the first EP I really love, but this one felt a lot more directional for me. And, you know, I felt much more of a curator on it, which is something that I guess I didn't really have on the first one because I was just kind of dipping a toe in. I just discovered I could make music, you know. And this one I was like, okay, so I'm making music. This is what I've got to say. And it span over pre-COVID and during COVID, and the creative happened within it. I think it's so reflective of me as a person, and I'm really happy to stand by that project. So regardless of what anyone was going to think, I was just happy to have it out, and it was doubly like an amazing feeling to have people like accept what you've made and understand it.
Right. And to get a little weird with it and have fun with it too. During a time when not a lot was fun, I think your project gave people a lot of joy.
I didn't expect people to gag so much over the artwork though. I don't know why. I just thought, I was like, yeah, I just want to see myself flattened out. Like, I haven't shot for ages. Like, we've been stuck inside. Like, I've been pigging out on like Deliveroo and watching movies. I was like, am I shoot ready? Like, I was like, whatever. Let me just like discombobulate myself visually. And I was like, I've been watching loads of sci-fi and Doctor Who and stuff. So I was like, this totally makes sense for me right now. And then everyone was like, oh my God, like, how gross. But it's fab.
Read my lips, I need a thick chick toy. Slop top in a drop top, get boy. Crop top getting ripped off like boing. I'ma beat the pussy up till you feel it in your loins. Fucking with a dog, kitty cat goes me out. Sitting on my dick at the top of the tree house. Where your eyes the kick, you can never hold me down. I see you in a bit when you're finna get eat out.
Pull me up, bust a sweat, big dick will get me wet. Drip into my panties, you can lay me up in the rest. Late nights, horny in the morning. If you got the stamina, you can keep on calling, baby.
BDE is around the corner as well. How did that come together? I mean, I feel like it's such an organic collaboration. You and Slow Tie, it just makes too much sense. How did you guys meet?
I think I was supporting Mira Massa, and Ty had come out for a couple of the shows because they have a song together. And we didn't even meet properly then, but we were kind of like near each other. I was like very close to him. And then I can't remember who reached out first. I think his team must have a session or something. And then I'd already started this track with Karma Kid. I'd like come into the studio like still up from the night before, which isn't like an everyday occasion, but on this one I was like, I think I have the best vibe to come work in the studio today with like 1 hour sleep. And then I think it was like the third song we made in that session, like me and Karma Kid. And as soon as Karma played me this, like it was like he just had the drums, and as soon as he started that, all the words came to me. And at the time I'd been hooking up with someone who was like not giving me any joy, so all the words about that came out in the song, and this like desire for satisfaction. And I think I desire satisfaction in all things, so it was just like, I just tapped into that energy. And then when I'd done that, I was like, this would be so sick with a male vocalist, and brought it to Ty because I've never really heard Ty talk about sex before. Here I'm being so derogatory to men and like objectifying them. I was like, who can stand up to that? That's like definitely going to be Slow Tie. Like he's got that energy that's like can defend himself. He's like funny, and he's honestly the nicest guy. So when we got the chance to sit in the studio together, we like went back and forth on some stuff, and it was really interesting to work with him because I haven't actually worked with that many vocalists or like rappers or anything on my own stuff, especially. And just seeing how other people work is still really, interesting to me, and like what they tap into. And especially when he hasn't spoken about sex before, I was like, okay, you need to be filthy. And like he totally got the brief. He really went with it. And it's my, usually my voice is my favorite part of the song, but his bit's definitely my favorite on this one.
Kind of branching out a little bit, what does this summer look like for you, Shy? Like, what do you got going on besides career stuff? Like, do you have anything fun lined up? Are you going to go on any trips?
Yeah, I'm trying to go to the Caribbean. I miss it so much. My grandma lives in Grenada. And there's something about, I've been in cities for too long. Like, I've been in London for ages. This is probably the most I've ever stayed in London since I started making music. Well, even before then, I always had a job that I could travel. So, yeah, this is a lot. I've got 2 cats in this time. I'm turning into a cat lady, so I need to get out.
Well, thank you so much for taking a minute to talk with me. I really appreciated it, and I'm so fucking excited to finally get to live in these songs. I feel like, we've all gotten to process them enough in our own little spaces, but I feel like they're like bursting at the seams, and what a treat to kind of get to experience them now in the world again.
Totally. But also thank you so much for giving me the space to talk, and it's been such a lovely conversation. And I'm constantly surprised because I wonder how long people are going to listen to me chat before they get sick of me. but it's been really lovely to talk to you, so I'm glad you've asked me.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, and keep talking. We're listening.
Perfect.
Amazing. Well, enjoy the rest of your day in London.
All right, you too. Bye.
That was Shygirl in conversation with the famous Salvatore Maicki. Shygirl's new single with Slow Tie, BDE, is out now via Because Music. Our engineer is Tony Giambroni, and our associate producer is Salvatore Maicki. We'd like to thank Loughton Audio for providing our microphones. You can find them online at lautenaudio.com. And we'd like to thank James Ivey for providing our intro music. Remember to follow The Fader Interview wherever you listen to podcasts, and keep an eye on thefader.com for essential music news, interviews, and essays. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Fader Interview. Goodbye until then. You know that one song you can't get enough of? Chances are it was made with a sample from Splice. Explore top packs made by your favorite producers, sketch out song ideas in seconds with Create Mode, and dive into a sample catalog that's so deep, it's dangerous. Find out why Splice is the industry's not-so-secret secret. Visit splice.com and try for free today.